invite Paul up here to tell us all about it. Give him a big round of applause.
Thank you. First, we have to be on TV. That's kind of like the prerequisite here. That's what they say. At least I'll be on TV mostly, but I always like to get a little group shot before I get started. So if you would you all just say, I'm going to record you now, okay? Would you all just kind of say hi to the world out there?
Hey!
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas!
Lots of that.
Yeah. There we go.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I hope all of you have some flyers out there. You've got some flyers.
Thank you.
Because this is perhaps one of the most spectacular things that's happening in our nation's history besides 1776. And a lot of people might say, does this work? No. A lot of, am I all right with this? Like this? Okay. I do a radio show 5 days a week live from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. It's a national broadcast show. It comes out of my studio, actually in Yuba City, California, and it emanates from Red State Talk Radio, the largest digital provider in the world of talk radio. We have 36 hours of live talk radio every day on 2 channels. That's how we do it. It's not mystery. We have 2 channels. But it says, how can you get 36 hours out of 1 channel? Because we have 2. And we're soon going to be actually up to 48 hours of live talk radio. And it's really a pretty amazing process. So, and it comes out of Washington, D.C. Talk about the belly of the beast. My show runs from 9 a.m. to 12, which is the prime time on the East Coast. And it's called Agenda 21 Radio.
Yes.
Don't you just love it when a plan starts to come together?
There we go.
And I started Agenda 21 Radio after doing a stint from around 2000 to around 2011 called the Inside Education Show. I was a school administrator, and I was trying to bring national attention to the high dropout rate here in California. Because the dropout rate of kids that drop out of high school or don't complete high school was around 43, 44% at that time in 2000. Damn. Since it's kind of creeped up, regardless of what the state of California tells you, it's a lie.
Yeah.
Okay, I know, because I know how to count it, and I've done it for years, and they do too, and they lie. They lie like crazy. They lie so much that when I challenged them about 3 years ago, what are your latest stats on dropouts? Oh, they said, Paul, it's 4.7%. I go, they go, no, really, Paul? And I said, how do you calculate? Well, in 8 years, how long does it take a kid to get a diploma? That's how they calculate, 8 years. I said, no. 4 years in high school, how long?
Yes.
How many? We don't talk about that, Paul. And so what they started doing is they just don't report the number now.
Yes. That's it.
Okay. Does that work for you? Sure. Now, Los Angeles Unified admits the 53% dropout rate of the second largest school district in the United States. They admit that. You can call them and they'll tell you, oh, it's 53% straight up. And then a couple of years ago, 2007, Arnold Schwarzenegger, the great governor, socialist, communist he was, and still is, he decided what he was going to do was do away with adult education. So all these kids that were dropping out would not have a place to go.
Oh, that's terrible.
But not only that, he did that. He did away with it. He made it it was a categorical program in educational parlance, and he said, well, schools need the money, so we're going to eliminate adult education. Adult education was one of the strongest educational programs on the planet.
I've been through it.
And it was the largest assimilator device we had in America, by far.
Yes.
Because it forced people to speak English.
Yes.
Right.
We had the largest English language program in the world in California adult education in a one pen stroke. See, he was teaching Obama something before Obama became president. He did away with it.
It's called ESL.
So that's what Arnold Schwarzenegger did. Now, if you think about it, back in 1996, a lot of us got onto a program called Prop 221. We amended the Constitution And that required that kids that graduated from high school have to be English proficient.
Yes.
Now, in 2016, they did away with that.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
It no longer exists. They're teaching them in their own native tongue. Now, of course, that's the end of California as we know it. Actually, if you think about it, give it another 10 years to see how that's going to work out. So just a few little tidbits. I was involved with all that stuff, and then I met a girl by the name of Rosa Corey. You have her book on sale back there. Buy it if you haven't bought it. I was doing a radio show, and I called her, and somebody said, Paul, you know, in your education show, you talked about all these different things. You got to talk to her because it all fits. And I had no idea who she was. No clue. So I talked to her for about 5 minutes, and I said, we're on the air tomorrow. That was Thursday. And by the end of that show, I walked into my station owner, Tom Huth, and I said, Tom, Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, you have a slot. I'm taking 2 hours. We're starting a new show called Agenda 21 Radio. That was 9 years ago.
Yeah.
And I said, we have got to call attention to this, because this is the plan. This is the plan for what we're experiencing today, right now playing out. These fires up here,
Yes.
I live up there.
Yeah.
My home in Magalia that I used to own is gone.
Oh, no.
There's lots of people still missing. Forget about what you hear. People were incinerated between 3,000 and 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. There are people in this room who visited up there with me. They've seen it. I've been there 5 times. I'll go up there 6th time this weekend. It's like a nuclear wasteland.
Jesus.
People were openly incinerated, including their bones. Which the only way you're going to be able to do that is to get temperatures between 3,000 and 4,000 degrees. They say there's only 3 or 4 people missing. That's what they can count.
Ha.
People have come up with wild numbers of 25,000 missing. My number that I feel comfortable with, based upon my data, my stats, 3,000.
Okay. All right.
No one wants to talk about that. We do on my radio show all the time. So Agenda 21 Radio, we were the ones that were out there responsible, outing Jerry Brown for his negligence with the Oroville Dam. That was a fun night. How many are familiar with the Oroville Dam disaster last year?
Yeah, a little bit.
How many of you know that we came really within hours of wiping out 1 million people? How many of you know that within hours, not only would we have wiped out 1 million people probably in a half an hour, but we also would have destroyed the richest place on the planet for rice production in a single place, which would have caused famine and killed millions more. How many know that?
Wow.
See, not many of you know that. It wasn't just the kill at the beginning, which, by the way, would have
Where's
killed
that
me.
rice producing?
I would have been 24 feet underwater at my house
in Modoc
Union
County,
City.
in Shasta County, in that area.
By the way, no warnings about this. It was all done by cell phone and texting and people telling other people, knocking on doors to get out.
Yes.
You know these sirens that you used to have on the fire departments to warn you of something? All turned off except for in one place, Biggs, and I found out about Biggs the other night. The only town in the whole valley that had a siren going, and the people got out early. No problems, no issues. Up here in Paradise, no sirens, no warnings. They disconnected all the sirens.
Why?
Well, I don't know. I'm just going to let your imaginations run wild. Why would they do that? Why would they do that in the case of the flood? Potential flood. Oh, and here's another one. 4 years before this fire, how many of you love your little Agenda 21 roundabouts? Well, let me tell you how it killed people in Paradise.
Yes.
They didn't even do the roundabouts. They used traffic calming. 4 years ago, they got $1.5 million, the city did. Oh, let's fix up the bike lanes. Let's make sure that in downtown Paradise, at a great strategic place, we can create a choke point for traffic. So they did. They went from 4 lanes down to 2.
That's right.
They took the 2 lanes and they put in a whole bunch of curbing so that you couldn't use the 2 lanes on the outside if you had to for a car.
Oh my God.
And it became a kill point.
Yeah.
When people were trying to get out, people burned to death in their cars. That was 4 years ago. The plan is working. And of course, the aerosol spraying that we talk about, we hear about. How many of you do not yet believe in chemtrails? Okay. Well, I'm here to tell you that everybody in Paradise doesn't not only believe in them, they know all about them, and they're quite authoritative on them. You know that little aluminum oxide, when it combines with iron filings in the soil, do you know what it creates? Who knows? Who's in the military who knows? What does it create? You know? Thermite.
With that.
How many know what thermite is? Come on, how many of you guys are veterans? You should know if you're hand grenades and stuff. You handled thermite grenades, what were those? No, they weren't really. They were incendiary devices, weren't they? And they melt metal between 3,000 and 4,000 degrees. That's thermite.
Jesus.
You take thermite or you take aluminum oxide and you spray it and spray it and spray it and spray it and spray it by the tons in the valley. And it desiccates your plants. Why? Because the plants all take up the aluminum oxide. And it desiccates the plants. It almost kills them, makes them look sickly. How many of you noticed your plants around here somewhat look sickly? Yeah, a few of you picked up on that. I'm a biologist, a botanist, so these things I'm very sensitive to. A week before the fire up in Santa Rosa, I was asked by Orlean Corley to give a speech up there, and I did. But one of the things that caught my eye, I hadn't been to Santa Rosa in years, was how desiccated and sickly looking the plants all around that area were. I soon came to the conclusion, because I stopped on the side of the road, and I grabbed one of the plants, broadleaf, and I said, this thing's almost dead. And I looked at the hill, and all the hills were that way. And the reason why they're poisoned, because people have done actual assays of that, they're rich in aluminum oxide. Now, you know what aluminum oxide is? It's an accelerant. Burns at a very high temperature. And up there, I'll tell you, you can go up and talk to anybody you want that lived through that fire. And they'll tell you that for days on end, for weeks on end, constant aerial spraying going on in the valley. Some people that sat off at the hillsides, they could watch it coming with the jets just laying it down and watching it just come down to the ground. I think we found the answer as to why it burned at 3,000 to 4,000 degrees. That's why we found people that were dust inside their cars. I was up there watching how they went into the houses and pulled out the bodies. Of course, there were no bodies. They were using sifters to find any skeletal remains.
Wow.
I watched teams of these people do this. As you look at literally a nuclear waste, these pictures don't do anything to tell you what's really going on. We're being killed off by these folks. And by the way, if you take a look at a map of what we call or propose to be New California, you'll find it's being burned. We're being run off the rural lands. And that's part of their plan. How many of you ever heard of the rewilding plan?
I do know about that.
Rewilding is real. Anybody work for the Department of the Department of Fish and Game Wildlife here? Ask somebody that you know if they have a rewilding program here in California, and they'll tell you, yes, that we do. Do you know what that is? Who knows what that is? Yes, Arthur knows.
Yeah, it's about getting rid of the inhabitants and allowing the wild animals to come back in and repopulate.
That's correct, and the only place they're going to be able to do that is, of course, the rural properties.
Yep.
Right? So this is basic, and there's maps of this. You have people in the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and what they do is they go to work every single day in Sacramento. They put on the uniform, and they calculate, make calculations how they're going to depopulate rural portions of California so they can rewild it. Put wild animals in there. That is hideous and heinous. And I hope I've answered maybe part of the question. I guess maybe Donald Trump answered part of the question as to why we have fires that burn so hot now. That's because Jerry Brown cancels all the money for programs that are designed to go in and clean the forest.
Yes.
Clean the
Right.
chaparral. That's been going on for years. I used to
Right.
live up in Plumas County.
Right.
You go to Colin Pine's property up there, the logging company, you can eat off the forest floor. And they never have fires. But in the forest, national forest or the state forest, oh yeah, they burn like crazy.
Yep.
That's because they want them to burn.
Yeah.
They're burning us off. Now, I hate to be so blunt with you, but this is the world that I know about. And it's, it's so many other people's fault because they educated me about it. Rosa Corey's fault. I blame her. But Rosa taught me something very, very interesting. She says, Paul, you know, now that I've taught you this, because we had long talks, she says, you get it. You totally, and I do. I totally got what was going on. I saw it instantly. I saw it through the educational program, 41 years. Saw how they were dumbing down our kids. Saw the destruction of shop classes, hand skill classes.
Yes.
Saw all the shop instruments, like all the lathes and everything, being picked up by China and shipped back to China from California schools. I bet you didn't know that one. In Fontana, you know what they did?
China.
The teachers did? They banded together and stole the shop equipment and hid it out from the Chinese so the superintendent couldn't sell it.
Wow. I got to talk to my
Those machines are
Fontana.
now being used, I'm not going to tell you where, in various places. The same ones that came off the ships that they were dismantling in LA Harbor at the time after World War II are being used again today by high school students. They saved them. But only 10% of the school districts in California now have any kind of a semblance of shop classes. And of those, they probably have very, very few shop courses being offered.
Yeah.
It's called sections.
That's terrible.
Yeah. So you wonder why our kids are being dumbed down. That's really one of the reasons. Plus, they're all being put on psychotropic medications, right?
Yep.
Especially the boys.
Yeah.
Right, okay, that's another story. But I'm here to really talk about New California and what this is all about, because
Please, Jesus.
it is rather revolutionary. It's a moment of the founding fathers again being brought back to life. All other programs that are out there to try and start a state or make a statement politically are false and bogus. They will never achieve their goal of becoming a state. And if they try and tell you under the circumstances that exist now, they're lying, they're not being truthful. I have to be blunt about that, because we are on a mission now and we only have a window of opportunity in the next 2 years to make this happen. So we don't want any BS. You know, it's like that movie, if you ever saw the movie Pearl Harbor, and there's John Voight talking about, you know, a sub-commander comes in with a plan about taking B-25s off of a carrier, and he says, you know, I like sub-commanders because they don't have any, they don't put up with any BS. We're at that point. We will have to do this, and failure is not an option. It is not an option. Our society, our civilization depends on this, and that's no joke. All you need to do is watch what's going on with Donald Trump. The globalists are here and they're not giving up, and they're not giving up easily. They're getting desperate, but they're not giving up.
Yeah.
And they do want to destroy us. If they're going to set, by the way, Agenda 21, the plan brought in by George Bush Sr.,
Yeah. That's right.
it is a plan, bottom line, to depopulate the planet. And you've seen depopulation just take place right in the state. It's right up by me. And an attempted mass murder by Jerry Brown and others with the Oroville Dam.
Yep.
He knows I say this because I was telling him the night he almost killed me and everybody else. I was trapped in my house. I couldn't get out. There was no way to go. The dam was moments away from one of the largest earthen-filled dams almost went. And Sheriff Corey Honey of Butte County stopped it, put a stop to it. He called them out. He confronted these people. And they were going to go through with their heinous little plan. And he stopped them. And the water was forced to go over the main spillway, and it saved 1 million lives. You know why they didn't want to put it over the main spillway? Because they were worried about destroying the fish habitat downstream of the Feather River.
Yeah.
I went up to the dam the day before on the 11th. I was asked to speak before a Republican group in Chico. And I said to them, look, I'm going up to the dam. Sorry, I got to cut it short. I'm out of here. So I go up to the dam, up to the top. I used to work in Oroville, so I know a lot of people over there. Drove up to the top of the dam, because you could do it then. And the water was overtopping the dam, literally. It was overtopping in the emergency spillway. And I thought, great, we'll see this damn thing, you know, kind of going, what's going on. So I walk all the way out to the ledge. You probably see that little ledge out there with those little things on the side. I was standing there looking at that going, wow, how cool is that? Now, I used to surf at the Wedge all the time in Southern California as a kid growing up. That's just what I did. So big water, big waves. You know, I got to get in it. I love it, you know. Still to this day, when I go down to the beach, I just take my clothes off and go in. I'm so svelte. So anyway, I'm looking at this water, and I turn around and I look at the reservoir, and I see this 6-mile wide mass of water just coming right at me at about 80 miles an hour.
Wow.
And then I said to myself, that's really intimidating. I don't think I want to go in that water. And I turn around and I look, and I watch the water cascading over this, what's called the weir, OG weir. It's going down on the ground, dirt, and it's head cutting, what's called head cutting. And then there's a guy standing off on the side, and he's got a big pumper, right? Big gunite pumper with the truck that's spinning around, and he's got this big hose, and he's taking the hose and he's squirting the hose with the gunite into the water. And I said, I think we have a problem, Oroville. It's just so freaking obvious. And so the next day, they're still driving the water over it. Corey Honey is really, there's some big backdrop story. He almost arrested some people before, and I wish he did, from the Department of Water Resources. There's a story to that. But the next day, he's aware of the emergency. He thinks everything's under control. So he decides at the very last minute, around 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the 12th. Now, I was there at noontime on the 11th, and I saw the head cutting. Head cutting is when water starts to eat away at the dirt in front of the dam, okay? Real simple. And that's where the guy's out there with it's almost like he's just peeing in the wind with his gun. So Corey Honey goes over, he's gonna go to the Glen facility, Glen Street. And he's walking around, he's got his uniform on, and everybody's kind of running around. Got the little yellow vest on. Incident command drum at the back of the one. Anyways, he's walking, oh, how you doing, Sheriff? Everything's really good in the hood, everything's going fine. So he's sitting there and walks around and says, well, I don't see anything that's pressing. It doesn't seem like there's a big emergency. So he starts to walk out of the building. And he stops and he looks in a room to the right. It's a planning room, all kinds of tables, big tables, about this size room, actually. And he's looking there, and one of the scientists is like, the engineer's like this, he's got both hands in his head. And he's looking at a sheet of paper. And there's a woman standing next to him, and he stands in the doorway. And the woman says, does the sheriff know about this yet? So, yeah, he's like, he's already chastised them for something else where he almost threatened, well, he did threaten them with arrest a week before. That's something else. So he says, well, what should the sheriff know? The guy looks at, well, Sheriff, we have a problem. Well, what's your problem? Because now, you see, he starts getting into detective, I'm grilling you because I think there's a criminal here mode. He says, what's the problem? He says, well, we got this thing going on at the OGB. What does that mean? And every time he made a comment, what does that mean? What does that mean? He's forcing this guy. He says, well, Sheriff, listen, we got this problem. I want to get together with my team and assess it, and we'll get back to you in a few minutes. He's going, really? So he goes off in another room, these two guys, and they meet with a team of people. Check? Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, he goes off, they go off. And then they come back about 15 minutes later and say, well, Sheriff, this is our problem. We got head cutting going on. What's that mean? Well, it means that the water is eating away towards the, and what's that mean? He says, well, it's going to start going up to the OG weir. And then what's going to happen? Well, that we're going to lose 1/3 of the dam. He says, well, what does that mean? He says, well, we'll lose 1/3 of the dam, and we'll instantly, within just a few 30 seconds or so, wipe out the entire town of Oroville. So, he says, well, how much time do we have? How far away? How fast does this go? It goes about 35 feet an hour. He says, well, how far away is the head cut from the OG weir? And he goes, 35 feet. So Corey pulled the big red lever, and but listen, no emergency system going on. The radios did not squawk anything about there's an emergency. Now I know that because I was sitting in my radio station working on editing, and the way that the device never went off. They never pulled out a ticket, nothing. Gee, it never happened in Paradise either. It never happened in Paradise either. Now, do I seem a little angry? That's because it's just straight up murder.
Yes.
This is murder. Mass murder. When you trap people by having you plan it, you use these accelerants, You use all this stuff over years. This is a plan being enacted, ladies and gentlemen. The black cloud, I was there the day with that day when it was burning. If you turn the lights out in here, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it would be just as dark in here as it was there. A big, huge black cloud hung over everything. It was up about 2,000 feet, but it was absorbing all the light. You could turn on your car lights, and it was disorienting because you didn't see anything in front of you, because there was no dust, there was no moisture to refract on. Crazy, huh? That's just kind of a weird fire, isn't it? You see these videos of these people being trapped, and it's dark and it's red? That's at 8:30 in the morning. That's at 8:30 in the morning. Wait, I'm just blowing it up. No, just thought this would happen. This is what I do on my radio show all the time. That's why I hear these kind of, no, just kidding. I'll get the message out. You see, this is what we are facing. I try not to be a drama queen about this, but by gosh, I almost got killed one night. We had people, my friends, by the way, in the New California State Movement in Butte County, blowing up as a county. We did a thing up there with about 60 people in a church. The church in it is all gone, of course. We could not find a lot of our people. We were worried they died. We had 4 of them that we couldn't find. We finally found them. They're all survivors. We had about 6 people lost everything then. Lost everything. I mean, just imagine everything a white ash, as far as you could see. That's what we had. There's a lot of other stories that go along with that, but Butte County was spared. We had last Saturday night, we had another town hall in Gridley, very well attended. More people catching on to what's going on with New California. But the reality check is we live in different times. And California is the hub for all this. We are the major hub for Agenda 21 throughout the world and the European Union. The European Union is also the other place, the Paris Peace Accord, right? So keep those little centers in play and in your thoughts. But New California started for me back in around 2009 and 10, because I was saying to myself, there's going to be a better way in which we can stop the monstrous things I was seeing in education and with everything else happening. So 2010, 11, and 12 come up, and I step up with the Jefferson movement. And I join with that. I become part of the leadership, and I said, you know, a state solves a problem. If we create another state, we can change forever the dynamics of this country. And will definitely devastate what's going on in California. Now, this is what's going on in California, if you haven't noticed. You're overregulated, overtaxed. And you're not in charge anymore. Did you notice that? You are a servant of Jerry Brown. You guys are, I'm not.
And Gavin Newsom is.
No, well, you guys are, I'm not. See, I was there saying the Declaration of Independence, January 15th, 2018 for New California. And I declared, and we declared independence for New California. I'm an independent man now.
Hallelujah.
I am not a subject of Jerry Brown's. I discovered the Constitution. You know, I discovered the Constitution, gosh, I really discovered it as a real assemblage of a great document around 2005 and 6. I was late coming to, I understood it. I had great constitutional teachers in college and graduate school, great ones. Didn't really think about it until, of course, you start thinking about, you know, looks like totalitarianism is on the rise here in California. And I can see it so easily in public education and everything else. Well, this is the root of our problem in terms of totalitarianism in California. It's our Constitution constantly being amended. You know, our Constitution right now has only been amended 23 times in the United States. You know how many times it's been amended in California since 1879?
Too many.
530 plus times. 500, and including Prop 1A of 1966. You know, that thing that Reagan caused. Remember, Reagan was elected in 66, right? So obviously he brought that in, right? That brought us a professional legislature, which meant this, that the legislature would no longer meet every 2 years for 60 days. It would meet 11 months out of each year every day. Now, what could possibly go wrong with that? You talk about a runaway legislature, and of course it was Reagan's fault, because Reagan was elected as governor, and oh, by the way, so was the proposition, so obviously Reagan, it was his fault, get it? They tagged Reagan with that. Reagan didn't want anything to do with that. He knew what that was about. And right now, that's from 1966, now 2018, look at the mess we're in. The governor can say and do anything he wants. The legislature, they can pass any bill anytime they want. They can do that at will. And what do? They do it. And then what happens? You get regulations, you get everything else in taxes and fees and everything else that go up, don't they? That's what's happened right now in Cal. That's where you're at. You're in a totalitarian nightmare right now. Text message again, anybody?
Yep.
You can thank Donald Trump. He's taking that away from him.
Thank God.
What else did he take away? Well, I'll tell you what else he did. And one of the greatest things, we were working up there with our relief program that we had for New California up in Chico, and we had tried to arrange a meeting actually with Donald Trump. Donald Trump's kids listen to my radio show every day.
Great.
Connect the dot there, please. Okay? He gets his information not from the people around him. Everybody around him wants to kill him. That's a fact.
Deep state.
That is a fact. Do you ever wonder why everything is kind of chaotic over in the White House? That's because it is chaotic in the White House because everybody's trying to destroy him. Tucker Carlson I met a couple weeks ago, about a month ago. He was here in San Francisco. And in his speech, he came in and he just said, look, everybody in Washington hates Donald Trump. They all want him gone. They want him dead. That doesn't matter. His staff of people that have been there, done that, they all want him. They want a piece of him. But he doesn't get his news and information from them. It's hard for him to trust them. Remember he was supposed to go to Lima, Peru? You remember that?
Yes.
Well, Lima, Peru, we got the word somebody was going to assassinate him.